Hello, and welcome to the Assembly Line, an NES homebrew podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Kevin from Kahan Games.
And I'm Beau from Soul Goose Productions.
And we're here to talk about homebrews. How you been, Beau?
Busy. How about you, Kevin?
Busy is a very good word for it.
You'd think after the holidays are over, you'd have some chance to breathe, but suddenly January's already gone.
Yeah, I kept, trying to, delay all these plans I was making, because a lot of people wanted to get together, and I would say, just wait until after the holidays, January will come around, I'll have more time, and then, every day just feels so busy still. It's crazy.
Yeah, and it's not a bad thing. I mean, the first, whole week of January was taken up with MagFest, which was a great time.
The best time.
Yeah, you really did enjoy it. I was surprised.
It's become far and away my favorite expo.
It is a very, very large... Is it the biggest expo? I'm not quite certain.
I'm not certain either. I think it has an extra day on Portland, so I don't know if it's a fair comparison to just look at numbers, but it was packed for sure.
I've heard Portland's the biggest retro gaming thing, and then MagFest is the biggest music and games. So I don't know. These places they take whatever tagline they can get, I guess.
Well, they have everything there. I mean, they have the arcade, they have the indie game showcase area, they have the vendor area, they have the concert halls, upstairs you have the tabletop gaming area and the computer museum. It's so much to do. Even when you have 4 days to do it, you still can't see everything.
Plus, it's 24 hours.
Oh, man, isn't it?
God,
we had fun.
You're talking about not sleeping.
Not sleeping mixed with lots of alcohol.
Well, yeah, there's that. But yeah, it's a big show. It was a lot of fun, and you didn't have anything there, but there was a decent homebrew presence. I was there with Spookatron and my little red space helmet TV. Kevbot was there with an assortment of games until one of them was kindly asked to not be shown anymore. And, well, I think you can guess which one. Justin was there with, he had early copies of Free Cell available, which is part of his ongoing sort of MS entertainment pack that he's slowly been doing. Minesweeper was out, and then now Free Cell. He uses different names for him, UXO, and
yeah.
Well, I think this one is called Free Cell.
The Haunted guys.
Oh yeah, Tim and Greg, they were there. Yep. That was a blast talking with him again.
Was Megacat there?
Oh yeah, James was there. James and his crew, they were there showing off I don't know, 8 games or something.
Star versus guy was there.
Dustin, yeah, he was there. I only got to see him for a second though.
I think I'm sure we forgot someone. I'm sorry.
Yeah, there's always somebody. It's usually Frank. I almost always forget to mention that Frank is at events, but
Frank was definitely not there.
No, he was not there this time. But yeah, no, it was a fun time, and it was interesting to me because this is the first time that I've had a game that I was selling that I also have made myself and wasn't just publishing for somebody else. And
yeah, that's a really big deal, man. You've been to a lot of these expos, just sort of supporting your friends and, selling the games that you've published, but you've never had sort of your baby that you could show someone, take money, and hand them a copy. So I was really sort of proud seeing you do that. It's nice.
Is this where we cue the coming of age music?
Probably.
Okay. We need to find some of that. But yeah, no, it was really just weird to have people be sitting there playing and watching them and sort of creep up behind them like I like to do, and then either give some pointers or just tell them they have the controller upside down or whatever. But most of them understood how to play the game right away, which was just a huge sigh of relief to me, because after MGC I was sort of worried that people didn't quite get it.
Well, it was nice because you had it set up with the Virtual Boy controller. And it helped, of course, that you edited the game to where that selection saved, so you didn't have to keep switching it back. But I think there's something sort of instantly familiar about the game. you move with the left stick, you shoot with the right stick. There's not a lot that you really have to figure out.
You would think. I had a girl at MGC just sit there for like 10 minutes and nothing was moving and she couldn't figure out what to do because I had like debug mode in there. So she turned off enemies and she's just walking around killing things. I'm like, oh, geez, this isn't going to work.
Oh, man.
But yeah, no, it was neat. I had a couple backers come up to me and then I got to give them their copies early and in person. Alex, guy named Alex, and well, your last names, I don't know, people don't want their last names said, but yes, Alex, it was great. It was great to meet, and yes, that is why. I almost had it out, but I caught myself.
Nice.
But yeah, no, it was weird, like, to talk with somebody who had followed the project the whole time and like been waiting expectantly.
Speaking of meeting someone who knows the project, we had someone come up and introduce himself who actually listens to our podcast.
Oh, yes, E.C. Myers.
That was really surreal.
That was weird. It's strange when you're like recognized based off of an 8-bit profile drawn by your friend Tim.
And he's like, hey, I know your voice.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Golly, that was strange.
Super nice guy, though. It was awesome meeting him.
Not to say if you're ever in a situation where you see us to not introduce yourself, but it is strange when you're like, oh man, I hear that voice in my sleep. I'm like, oh, okay.
Oh man. But what I love most about MagFest is that they usually put us in the same room as the indie game developers. So going around and seeing all of the new games that people, it's a treat, I think, because indie games are primarily what I spend my time playing, and usually it's on the Xbox One, but a lot of these games that people are working on come out for all the modern platforms. So it's really cool getting to go around, meeting the people who make the games, and getting to try them out, because it's they're always coming up with really unique gameplay ideas. I think this is kind of the golden age of indie games, because people aren't afraid to try unique things, and it seems like consumers are really willing to really go there with you and give them a try. So it's a lot of fun.
And if you're unhappy with somebody, you can actually hassle them in person about not finishing it, right?
Yeah, sorry, it's Pixel Noir guy.
Jeez, you gave him hell.
Well, okay. When's the last time we were at MagFest? Was it 2 years ago?
2 years ago, yeah.
And it was almost out 2 years ago, and then we're passing by him, and I'm like, hey, when's it coming out? Oh, it's coming out soon. Yeah, you said that 2 years ago, all right? Don't feed me those lines.
Yeah, well, as one who might have missed a release date, I can fully understand.
But I'm only passionate about it because I'm very much looking forward to it. So when that game comes out,
it looks amazing.
I will be playing it for sure.
But yeah, it's kind of weird that, well, it's not maybe weird, but it's a little different that the classic console homebrew games are thrown into the same room with the indie games. Are homebrews indie games? Are indie games homebrews? Let us discuss.
The eternal question.
No, the eternal question is homebrews versus repros, but...
Oh, okay. Well, that one's a little easier to answer, in my opinion.
Well, in your opinion, of course. Same in mine, but I saw stuff today already. I can't go there right now.
we won't go down that road. Okay, well, what would you say the differences are between an indie game and a homebrew?
Homebrew games are indie games that don't make money.
So you think indie games typically make money?
That's always what I tell people. And they're like, why don't you make indie games? I'm like, I do this because I don't want to make any money. Like, that's why I chose this life.
Yes. Well, you picked the right life, my friend.
I don't. How would you describe an indie game?
So, it's really hard for me because they do have a lot of similarities, indie games and homebrews. But typically, when I think of indie games, I think of a team of people that maybe don't live in the same area. They're all working sort of remotely, but they're sort of putting together a modern game, and a lot of these games sometimes have retro sort of influences, but it's a new game for typically a modern console or a PC. But it seems to me that usually, at least from what I see, it looks like they do this as their main thing. Like, it's not a sort of a stay-at-home in your spare time passion project type thing.
Oh, so they're like more legitimate, official, and able to make a real living off of it.
That's sort of the way I look at it, and a lot of them probably can't necessarily make a living off of it, and they very well could be doing it in their spare time. But it seems, in my opinion, that indie developers are a little bit more sort of professional about things, and that's probably a terrible thing to say, because I think that what we do is professional, the way we present ourselves, and the way we sort of do the packaging and present the products. But the games themselves and the route that they take to make them, I think it's a little bit more sort of, this is what my main thing is.
I see.
That's just my opinion.
Oh, yeah, and you're entitled to. What are some indie games that you would throw up as examples of that sort of, not genre, but category of game?
Well, we could throw out, the famous ones like Super Meat Boy and Fez. The games that sort of everyone kind of knows about.
Somebody saw a movie.
Well, yeah, I'm sure most of the listeners saw that, but a lot of other ones that I love are Hue and Oxenfree. Thomas Was Alone. There's just some really, really unique experiences that are put together very, very well, and they're a lot of fun, man.
See, that's different than me, because I don't play on modern consoles until this past week, and I finally got a 3DS.
Welcome to
very
the fall.
excited. But like when I think of indie games, I think of course, the ones in that movie, but also Cave Story, which was done by a guy in his free time at night over like 5 years, and that's sort of the shining example for me of like what an indie game is. But it only went on to become a hit later down the line. So yeah, that's more similar.
Ooh, Shovel Knight! Can't forget Shovel Knight.
Oh yeah, Shovel Knight. That's right. See, I don't even think of that one as an indie one because it got so big.
Yeah. I don't think the end, like the success, necessarily needs to define what an indie game is, and that's where things get a little confusing. I think homebrews typically are on more retro systems, by a person, maybe a couple people, but usually a single person, kind of just like putting blood, sweat, and tears into a passion project on a system they love.
See, I would do the platform of choice as the sort of the defining, maybe not the defining factor, but one of the greater descriptors for the category. Homebrew games are made, new games for old systems, and then you could kind of make that word old mean many things. You could be making something for the one guy does PS1 and Dreamcast stuff, and that, to me that counts. Like, it's old enough. But then the guy who did that Diamond Trust of London for the DS while the DS was still in its life cycle, it's like, no, that's just a single dude doing his thing on a current platform. So I don't know. It like the definition of a homebrew as a whole, it's a very fluid thing, and it's up to, you can define it many different ways, and each person's going to define it a little different. But for me, at least, homebrew games are games for older systems. Indie games are targeting more of a modern, new audience. But then there's so much overlap in terms of the actual game content. You see indie games being ported over to the NES games sort of being ported over to the indie scene, at least with PC downloads and Steam stuff. And it's very fluid.
Yeah, I remember someone, it was probably a couple years ago, someone making a thread on Nintendo Age. And I think this sort of topic came up. Someone maybe made a thread title that said indie game when referring to a homebrew. And
oh, the one that Bill did?
I don't remember specifically,
yeah.
But I remember there were some voice words. So people are very emotional about the title of homebrew.
Well, definitions as a whole, you end up getting that way with usually.
Yeah.
It was interesting to be in the indie section with like real indie developers, and we're just sort of like doing this homebrew thing. It's kind of like weird even for them. Like, we're like the 5% of this 5% sort of category of games.
Right. And I don't think people necessarily kind of knew what to do, like what to make of us. Like if you walk around, like everyone sort of has their modern systems set up with their modern controllers or their computers. Like everyone's there showcasing this like cutting edge stuff. And then like, here we are in a corner with some Nintendos. I don't know that people necessarily, I mean, I know a lot of people got it, but I did see some sort of puzzled looks when they were trying to make sense of us.
Oh, I do enjoy those puzzled looks. Yeah, then just imagine handing them a Virtual Boy controller and not an NES controller, and they just get real weird.
Yeah.
And it's not just the games themselves that, get ported back and forth between, classic consoles and modern platforms, but you also get different developers who make either indie games and then they start making homebrews, or homebrewers who start making indie games. And one of the most interesting has been a fellow by the name of Mattias, who did a game called Quest Forge by Order of Kings, which we have talked about talking about on numerous occasions now.
Quest Forge!
It is finally time to talk about what is one of the, in my opinion, better games on the NES.
Yeah, so this game sort of, it's funny because you and I were sort of, we're pretty involved in the scene. We know who's working on what. We know what's coming out. We know, we're in the know. And I was not in the know as far as this game was concerned. I drove up from the warm state of Florida up to visit you last year.
2 years ago.
Was it 2 years ago?
Time does fly when you're homebrewing and having fun.
My God. Came up there, hiding from the snow, trying to stay warm, going through your collection, and I came across this game I'd never seen before. So I was like, Quest Forge, what is this? And you put it in, and man, like I was glued from the start, man. Like there's nothing like this on the NES. I mean, it has sort of aspects of action adventure games. It has aspects of like roguelike games. It has so many different sort of game types kind of thrown together. And a lot of times when people do something like that, it just comes out like a kind of a cluster. But man, like everything about this game works. And I just sat there and I played the hell out of it. And I wanted to beat it before I left because I think it was like the last day before I was leaving to come back to Florida. But I wound up getting to the very end and stumbling upon one of the very few bugs in the game that prevented me from completing it. But man, like don't let the thought of like a bug being in the game dissuade you from playing this because beginning to end, it gripped me, gameplay, story, like it's all good.
Well, you went home and bought it like the next day, didn't you?
I came home, played it, and just fell in love and wanted to tell everyone about it. So I don't think I've shut up about it since I got home from your house 2 years ago. It's really good.
Well, okay, so I guess let's back up from this gushing awesomeness that you have just spilled forth.
Yeah, I got to clean up over here. It's a mess.
Yikes. So yeah, the game you play as this little like night guy, Sir Nils, and you are questing after this orb, and that is, pretty much as much story as you're getting in Zelda. So you have at least that much in Quest Forge, and the manual's got some, other little details, and it's very pretty and all that. But your basic thing is you're a little guy, you're trying to find something. So how do we go about that in terms of gameplay, Kevin?
Well, first of all, let me just state, you know how much I love Zelda, right?
I do.
I mean, it's probably my favorite Nintendo game.
That would make two of us, I think.
And I would go so far as to say this game made me want to complete it more than Zelda made me want to complete it. Like, there's just something about this game. I don't know if it's the various, parts of the map that are so sort of discernible, like they're so unique. But man, like I just kept wanting to see what was next. So anyway, sorry about that side tangent. What was the question again?
What are we actually doing when we finally fire it up and get through the title screen and all that? Tell me about the battle system, I guess. Okay. Or the exploration. Well, give me a description of the gameplay itself.
Okay.
Anywhere you want to start.
Envision sort of how the original Zelda looks with the sort of overhead map. You're going to the edge of the screen, and then that in turn loads a new screen, and that's sort of how you explore this world. But what makes this game so unique, and I don't think I've seen this in any other game ever, and I probably haven't played a ton of games that are out there in the world, so there's probably something. Shut up. But but what's cool, like when you press the A button, it spits out this power meter, and it starts out from full and kind of depletes to empty. Like when you're kicking off in Tecmo Bowl, imagine that, but the opposite and way faster. You push the button, the bar depletes in like the blink of an eye, but the higher, like the more bar that's there as you run into an enemy, that basically signifies how powerful you're going to be when you attack. So if your bar is completely full when you run into an enemy, you're pretty much going to kick their butt. And if it's empty, you hope. But if it's empty, you're probably not going to kick its butt. It's probably going to win that little round. And if you lose sort of a battle with an enemy, you lose a heart, which is another kind of unique thing that I've never seen in another game.
You don't see like a life system in action adventures usually. So you usually have like one life, and then you start, from your last save point or whatever. But in this, you have, 4 or 5 lives, and once they deplete, you have to start from the very beginning. No saves, no nothing. It's kind of different.
Yeah, and in addition to that, there's an experience system. So when you kill an enemy, you get some experience depending on sort of how powerful the enemy is in relation to what level you are. So a lot of times you're sort of, and I don't want to say grinding, because the game never feels like you have to grind to sort of continue in the game. But you'll find yourself sort of going back and forth to get some quick experience, because there are 4 categories that you can level up. And it's been a little while since I played, but I think it's power, speed, is vitality one of them?
Yes.
And a 4th one, which you will name right now.
There isn't a 4th one. The 4th slot is your weapon.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, which is another unique thing about the game. Like, there are weapons sort of hidden throughout the world, and they're blocked by various obstacles that you unlock as sort of you beat bosses throughout the game, but they're not in sort of chronological order. You have to do some backtracking and a lot of sort of exploring, but it never feels... A lot of RPGs, and I know this isn't a true RPG, but a lot of RPGs make you backtrack, and it feels sort of almost like a chore that you have to go back and, oh god, I gotta do this again, okay, whatever. But these weapons... Do you disagree? I thought it was a lot of fun sort of going around seeing, because there's a weapon that sort of spawns right near the beginning of the game. You turn on the game, there's a weapon like the screen to the left, and I kept going back to see if I could get it yet. Can I get it yet? And finally it unlocked. But yeah, it's unique, and it's fun.
Yeah, it's my deep sigh there was for your anti-RPG comments. But Quest Forge itself is sort of interesting because, it looks a lot like Zelda in terms of how you're moving around, and then the enemies and their placement on the screen and how they move around. But when you actually hit battles, it's very much like a rogue type game where you run into them with that power meter that gives you a bit of an advantage, but that's really like all you do after that. You just exchange hits back and forth until one or the other dies, or you lose a heart if you still have some. And yeah, it's very different than what's normally out there.
Yeah, and you had mentioned previously that, if you run out of life, you do get a game over, and there aren't any continues. So when you're down to 1 heart,
Oof.
like, yeah, it's the tension is real, man. Like, you are sort of super hypersensitive of like your every move, because you don't want to run into a battle that you can't win.
Well, that's one of the times too where you go back to the easier enemies, you grind out that next level because it gives you a couple hearts every level.
Yeah.
And then, but you have to. with the experience system as a whole, like the stronger you get, the weaker enemies, they either give you less or at some point they start giving you nothing. So you still have a bit of a challenge there. You can't just go back to the very beginning, grind out that, next level, then go back. You may have to go back and fight some semi-difficult enemies to get to that next level, and it's very tense.
Yeah, and he did a good job of it's not just enemies that sort of populate the world. He actually hid some extra hearts that you can find and some little experience gems that you can find to
the shields and of course the weapons.
Yeah.
Oh, and the shield too. Like if you right before battle, if you hit B, I think it activates your like super defenses, and so you can sort of plow through some stuff you wouldn't normally be able to, but you don't get very many of them in the game, so it's kind of a risk versus reward thing.
And then one more thing, there's a million more things I could go on and on about, but one more thing that I loved is he actually hid some secrets in the game. And one of them sort of, a lot of times people put secrets in the game that aren't at all obvious, so like you just have to sort of stumble into them or luck into them. But there's one sort of shield, was it a shield in the game where it's in a tree and you have to
there's a couple like that, yeah.
Yeah, you have to find sort of where you can walk through a place where you probably shouldn't be able to normally. So there is, it very much encourages you to sort of try different things.
Well, exploration, as much as the battle system is really unique and fun to sort of do, exploration is sort of the name of the game with this one. You travel across this sort of large world. You go through kind of a grassy field, under the sea, a desert, mountains, snow mountains. It's got quite a bit of geography in it.
Yeah, every place feels unique, and I can't say that about a lot of Nintendo games because of the system's limitations. You have art-wise, you have to be. I know you hate when people say that.
I do,
but it's true. Like you're forced to be creative to make areas feel truly unique, and I think this game does a great job about it.
Well, it does a much better job than like Zelda, where they just turned all the trees brown, or gray and white.
Like it's swaps.
Yeah, and it's not just simple palette swaps, but it's sort of a unique graphics for each area. At least they seem to be unique, from what I could tell.
Have we talked about how long the game is?
No, go for it.
It's like you said, there's no sort of saves or continues. So if it was too long, it would probably be a hindrance to sit down and try to complete in one sitting. But this game is sort of the perfect length. I think if you sat down and knew where everything was, would you say an hour and a half, couple hours?
Hour and a half, probably. I mean, because you still have to grind out some levels and stuff like that, but there's like a natural progression to it, not just knowing where everything is.
Yeah, and I don't remember there ever being sort of a wall that you hit where you can't. Well, I guess there are a couple places that scare you, like right after you take that first teleporter, and it brings you to that desert area, which is probably my favorite area. The first time I ran into an enemy there, he kicked my ass something fierce, and I was like, oh shit, like maybe this game's a little bigger than I anticipated, so I did have to go back and sort of grind up my levels a little bit. But man, it's a good length, and it's not a Battle Kid where it's just way too hard to enjoy. Like, it's a good difficulty, but it never feels sort of impossible to progress.
Well, I like that whole like risk versus reward thing with new areas, because if you don't know what you're getting into, it felt very, very much like the first time you're playing one of the classic games that you almost wish you could forget just so you could experience again.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I just really enjoyed that, because you get to the desert or the even the underwater, like there's certain enemies that you don't know if you can kill or not. Like there's a stationary deal that just kind of like shoots at you. And if you run into it, it just destroys you. And so you have to lose a couple hearts here and there to sort of discover what the game has in store. And I don't know, I like that.
Yeah, and we haven't even talked about, when you're comparing it to Zelda sort of has an overworld, and then it has the various levels, the dungeons, and each dungeon sort of has a boss. this game has bosses that are sort of scattered throughout the world. And you're talking about risk versus reward. You know, you see these bosses sort of sitting stationary, just sort of begging you to attack them, but you have no idea like how powerful they are, you know, if they're going to kick your butt. So you have to just go for it. And then the first time you lose to them, you have to decide like, how badly did I just lose? Like, is this something I can go just grind a couple levels on and come back? Or like, am I going to have to keep this guy in the back of my head and come back to him way down the road? Because there's a lot of bosses and they're all, I don't know, they're all different. And I guess every time you kill one, does it unlock a different thing in the world somewhere? And then you have to backtrack and figure out where that is?
No, they're usually standing in front of like an object blocking you from getting it. So like the very first one, which you encounter pretty quick, he's standing in front of the gem that allows you to move quicker underwater. And so you can go underwater before that, but you move like a slug, you get taken out real easy. So you wanna sort of take care of him first, and you gotta gain a couple levels at least before you can really do that. And so you're sitting there and you're losing a couple hearts on him, going, can I make it? Can I not? And that continues throughout the rest of the game, especially in the desert where there's 3 back-to-back bosses that you can either choose to fight or not.
Right.
That's where I found the shield. Probably the only time I ever used the shield in the game was right there.
Oh, okay.
Just because I was down to like no hearts left and was like, well, this is going to be it. If I lose here, it's over, because I went to attack him and I didn't do, a scratch of damage, and was like, uh-oh, what are we going to do now? And so I thankfully remembered the shield. But anyways, pro tip there. I didn't mean to give away anything.
Well, I think we've given people a pretty good idea of sort of what, how the game plays, sort of what the objective is. We haven't really talked about art specifically, how the game looks, how the characters look. I know we compared it kind of to Zelda in a sort of vague sense, but how would you describe the sprites or the graphics as a whole?
The sprites I found to be a little more intricate than the backgrounds, especially the hero one. There's some, you have a separate flesh color from the cape color. You can see sort of how they constructed the player character. And then they do some really neat things, like when you hit a warp tile, it like bursts your character into like 60 versions of itself as it spreads across the screen. Something I really wish I'd done in Spookatron, but I did not. And like little touches like that were just like, man, this is really like, they took some time on this. It's neat. They could have just quickly thrown together a 3-color character like Link and been done with it, but they didn't.
Yeah, and I think that's probably, from a programming perspective, that little effect they do when you warp, that's probably the most impressive thing visually in the game.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you hit it and you're just like, holy cow, what's just happened there? And it's like, yeah, I like that a lot. I need to find a way to use that.
But overall, I think the graphics, they feel consistent. I know some games, you can tell that multiple artists work on it because maybe the sprite work is really good and the backgrounds are kind of shoddy, or vice versa. Like, this game feels good and it feels sort of complete. Like, everything feels on the same level.
Well, yeah, the background art at least is a bit simplistic. I'd say it's above Zelda, but kind of below some other things. But as a whole, it is consistent with itself. And, once you're actually playing the game, you don't even hardly notice, because it creates that world that you're able to inhabit.
Yeah, the gameplay is so fun that it immediately kind of sucks you in and you're invested at that point. And I don't think that you're so much analyzing art from that point as much as just enjoying the experience. So the fun factor, I would say, absolutely fantastic. How would you say replayability-wise? Would you say there's a lot of replayability there?
Well, I did not make it through the game in the first try. It took me 3 or 4 tries this last time that I played. I mean, I played it a couple years ago, but firing it up this time and trying to get all the way through it. And so, I mean, to be able to, I can only die so many times in Battle Kid before I just turn it off. And I know we're always beating. Well,
I don't know if you've heard this, but it's one of the greatest Nintendo games ever made.
Yeah, I saw that on the forums today, but we won't get into that. Anyways, I don't mean to always pick on it, but it's that difference where it's like, am I dying every 10 seconds and they're just punishing me over and over again? Or like, am I dying due to my own like stupidity and not understanding the game itself? And some skill, but like not an excessive amount of doing everything perfect every time. But anyways, so yeah, in terms of replayability, just getting through it a few times or getting through it once will probably take a few, full game overs. And then after that, like it's still interesting to play, sort of like not quite to the extent that Zelda was, just because the world's not as big, but it's still interesting to go through it all. You don't have to go through it the same way every time. So there's a little extra replayability in that regard. And then there's also a plus game, which was a very nice addition.
Yeah, I think the game is short enough and charming enough to where you want to come back and sort of play through it again. I don't know, it's a lot of fun. I mentioned previously that the most, I probably didn't spell it out that the most memorable location for me was that desert area, but yeah, once I hit that portal and my character sort of exploded into all those little variations of himself and then reappeared in a different place, that's the point where I realized, my expectations for this game were not, I didn't have any since I didn't know the damn game existed, but when I hit that portal and it brought me to the desert, it opened my eyes, big, oh shit, this is gonna be awesome. So yeah, that was my most sort of memorable location. Do you have, your most memorable place in the game that comes to mind?
Oh, it's interesting you pick the desert, because most of the game it's connected geographically, and so you hit those teleporters, and it's like in Link to the Past when you shoot to the dark world and you're like, oh my goodness, there's a whole nother extra stuff to this game that I wouldn't normally be able to.
That's a good comparison.
It kind of is. It's still the same overworld, and it's still geographically connected, but you can't actually reach it without doing the different warps and stuff. So
that's actually, now that you mention that and bring that to my mind, that is the same feeling that I got back in the day when I was playing Link to the Past and I hit that teleporter, and I think back, when you first hit it the first time, you turn into a rabbit or something, but yeah. I was like, what the actual fuck just happened? It blew my mind, and this game, I'd say, maybe not quite on the same level as Link to the Past, let's be honest, but very, very, very good.
Yeah, I liked the actually underwater world the most. Just something about it. You don't get to go underwater in a lot of games. You're always up in an airship or you're sailing around on top of the water, but you never get to go under the water except in Lufia. And to me, that's just sort of a fun feeling to be in that different area.
Yep, for sure. So how was the game actually released when it came out?
It's kind of different for... I hate to use the word real indie developer, but somebody who has successfully published indie games and continues to do so for a living. I guess that's a real indie developer to me. But they posted online on some various websites, and some of the feedback instantly was well, you're releasing it on the NES. Thanks, pal. That doesn't help me out. And... just these rude, idiotic, forum comments. You never read the comments, especially on article posts. But, yeah, it was just kind of interesting to see. And, people chimed in where, this isn't what that's about. This is going to be a physical release. You can buy it on cartridge, and that's it. It's done at that point. So they found a publisher, and it ended up being Pico Interactive, who has done primarily,
repros, right?
Well... kind of. They're not repros in the sense of you or me sticking something onto a cartridge. They're repros and they're more official. He goes out and he buys the rights to these so he can officially release them, and he sees this as some sort of I'm now officially...
Yeah, that's his shtick.
Yeah, but he picks games that have been reproed for years, and everybody already has a copy that wants one, so it's what's the point? But anyways, yeah, he doesn't do a lot of homebrews, and Quest Forge was one of the few. Anguna by Nathan Talbert. That was for the Game Boy Advance, though.
You pronounced that correctly.
I did. It seems like I might have talked to him, and he might have corrected me in person. And I think that might be about it for actual... homebrews. He again mostly does the unreleased stuff. But anyways, so he did a special edition, and this was in a nice, like, slick-looking black box. It was in shrink wrap. Cartridge was red. They were all hand-numbered on the label. I have number 5. I was very quick on this one. You don't see homebrew RPGs every day, or kind of RPGs, so I jumped on it immediately. And it had a fold-out poster and map of the giant overworld. And yeah, so that sold for like $85. There were 100 of them. But partway through that sale, they didn't sell out immediately. Like, it was sort of right at that cusp of things not selling out right away. Plus, he's not able to be on many forums, so the word about the game didn't get out. We're just going to leave it at that, man. And so, yeah, they didn't sell out right away. I think he was down to like 17 eventually. And then one day, just all of those disappeared at once because I would check it multiple times a day because I was curious, like, when it was finally going to sell out. And so he started offering sort of a regular edition, and this had different artwork, kind of a more Dragon Warrior type artwork. It's a gray cartridge, I believe. I need to get it still. I actually saw it in like a local shop back in Indiana and was like, oh my goodness, like that's the weirdest thing. The guy was like, you know what that is? And I was like, yes, I know what that is.
Boy, do I.
And then he had it, amidst Mario hacks, but whatever.
So special edition and regular edition, that's all he released, right?
If only. There was also, after those last 17 copies of the special edition mysteriously vanished all at once, there was something called an overproduction edition, and he ended up taking, when you order parts, you don't get just, if you need 100, you don't just get 100, because either some go bad, or it's cheaper just to get, 200 and just throw the rest in the trash or whatever, in case you need one. So, the overproduction edition was this weird kind of not quite special edition that was sort of just cobbled together from whatever leftover parts happened to be around. And so on the website, it said things like, may contain map, or may contain, a special label. And so it was like, what is really going on here? And to me, like, as a variant collector, like, that's interesting. It's like, oh, cool. Except, if I've already bought a special edition, I want that to be special. If I'm going to go ahead and buy the regular edition, I want that to, do as many regular editions as you want, but don't mess with that, like, one special edition that I shelled out a bunch of money for. So I didn't even pull the trigger on the overproduction, and they got pulled kind of quick.
Yeah, and as a homebrew developer, we always... you have to sort of stay true to your word. When we release special editions, people are buying those, with the understanding that they're limited. Like, the whole purpose is, I'm going to buy this limited thing, and I'm going to have this limited thing, and once they're gone, and I'm going to be one of the few that has it. Like, coming back a week later and saying, oh, just kidding, here's 10 more, like that, you're really betraying trust at that point.
Yeah, I've seen it a lot in the homebrew community. I'm not going to name names or any of that, but like every time I see it, it's just like, I think we're done buying from you. Like, I'm not going to waste my time. I'll get it secondhand cheaper probably down the line. I'm just not even going to fret, because there's no point in signing up day one if you're just going to kind of burn all those who supported you right away.
Yeah, it's a shame, but
anyways, yeah.
Yeah. We shouldn't let our own personal feelings interfere with this review of everything.
I believe this whole podcast is our own personal feelings.
Oh, God bless.
I know. Who would have thought?
Well, didn't we, are we going to talk to this guy? What's going on?
Well, so that's the weird thing about QuestForge, is because it was put out by Pico, who doesn't have sort of a great forum presence these days, the developer himself was kind of really not talked about. There's no interviews, there's no information hardly. So we are going to kind of talk with the man himself. His name's Mattias. You there, Mattias?
Yes, thanks for having me.
Oh, yeah, thanks for coming on. Yeah, we don't normally get a chance to talk to, I guess, real, in quotes, game programmers. So I guess tell us a little bit about what you've done outside of NES development, because you're known for some other things, correct?
Yeah, I work at a indie studio in Sweden called Ludosity. We made a couple of games like It'll Do 1 and 2, and Card City Nights, Murray, among others. Yeah.
I've heard of It'll Do. It's on the Switch, isn't it?
Yeah, the second one is on Switch, yes.
Oh wow, that's like big time as compared to most of the NES stuff.
I guess, but we're not really that big.
Modesty. So I guess, how is Ludosity sort of structured? Is it you and a couple other people, or?
Yeah, we're about 6 people. A couple of programmers, a couple of designers, or just one designer, I guess, and a couple of graphics artists. Just doing whatever we feel like, I guess.
And where do you fit into that? Which part do you do?
Oh, I'm mainly a programmer, but I've also taken the task of making all the music for the games. So yeah.
Okay, because that was pretty much the only thing that I could sort of find tossed around on the internet was that QuestForge was done by Ludosity's music programmer, and I was like, well, that's kind of different. To jump from doing music to doing full games.
But it's the other way around. So jump from programming, making music.
Oh, interesting. Huh.
Yeah, my main duty is programming.
Okay, so how did you get involved with NES development?
Let's see. Well, I've always been interested in making NES games since it was the first console I owned as a kid.
Nice.
And just one day, out of the blue, I just realized I've been working as a game developer for, I don't know, a couple of years. And I realized that, I can do NES games now. It should be like within my reach. So I just started working on one. And that's basically how I got started.
So you said it was your first game system when you were growing up. What were some of your favorite games as a kid?
Mega Man were definitely number one for me as I grew up. I loved renting basically every single one of them that came out, and the X series for the SNES as well. I remember specifically Mega Man being like my favorite game for like 6-7 years or something. I really loved Mega Man, so yeah.
Was there a specific Mega Man or just the original Mega Man?
No, the second one and the fourth one, I guess, were my favorites.
I'm a 3 and 5 guy. Those are the two that do it for me.
When you decided to start trying to actually program for the NES, how did you get started going down that road?
I guess I did a Google search how to make an NES game. I don't know. I remember I came upon a article about programming on the NES in C. And I felt that was a good way to get into it, since I've been working in C++ and C# before. So
okay.
That was one of the things I noticed too about QuestForge was a lot of people have, said that full NES games, like large games, cannot be really done well in C, and then they usually hold up QuestForge as, hey, but this one was. This is proof that it can be done.
Yes.
I can see why not, actually. I had no problems making it in C, and I didn't have a problem with optimizing for frame rate or anything like that, so yeah.
Yeah, it's smooth and fluid.
You just have to use the C sparingly, I guess. You have to not use the language to its fullest potential, since it wasn't really made for the NES, I guess.
Right.
So where did, I guess, because QuestForge is not like Mega Man at all, where did the sort of general ideas for QuestForge kind of come from?
I started making an RPG. I do love the RPG genre now, even though I liked Mega Man, as you said, as a kid. RPGs are my favorite genre now, today. So I wanted to make a big RPG that was vast and crazy, but it was kind of difficult to do on the NES. So, well, I guess I tried to make a big, cool RPG at first, but then I realized that it wouldn't work. And I started developing for the Atari 2600 in between projects. And I made QuestForge 2 for the Atari before QuestForge 1 came out.
Did you really?
Yeah, so QuestForge 2 came first.
Is that out?
Yeah, well, it's not on cartridge, but you can find it to download the ROM and play.
Huh. Interesting.
I know what I'm doing later.
But when I made that, I had to obviously make the project lesser of scope, like focus it, since the Atari 2600 can't do much really. So that's where I came up with the idea of just walking into enemies like in Ys games and games like that, but adding the chicken race mechanic, I guess.
Yeah.
They have to push a button before you touch the enemy as late as possible, but not too late. And when I made, after I made the game for Atari 2600, I went back and redid the project for the NES to fit that that model and scope, and that helped making the game like come true, I guess. Like the scope got more narrow, and I could do it.
So the limitations then sort of helped you to sort of refine and get the project finished.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the way that you have to press the button as you run into the enemies to sort of determine how much power you have when you're hitting them, that's one of my favorite parts of the game. Is that mechanic used in any other games, or is that something that you just came up with on your own?
I think I came up with it myself.
That's really cool.
As I said, I based it off Ys and what's it called, Hide Glide, I guess. NES, where you just run into enemies, and just added one little mechanic to that.
See, I've never liked that system, but I really like it in Quest Forge. It seems to just work very well with the stats and everything.
Yeah,
for sure. The other thing that I think I like most about the game is that, the enemies spawn in like a static location on each screen, so you can kind of go back and forth between screens and grind on different enemies, that give between 3 or 6 experience per kill. Was it done intentionally to like allow you to grind easily to get up in power?
No, I think that's basically a optimization for the data. I think there are only a couple of spawn shapes or like preset positions. So the game, I don't know how many the game uses, but it's only a couple. So it's basically from that.
I never noticed.
I didn't either, so you did good.
Fooled me.
I remember when making the game, I sometimes made a screen and then realized, none of the patterns fit this, so I have to remake the screen. Enemies would spawn in the walls and stuff.
And it is one of the sort of lengthier NES homebrews out there. And then you went so far as to also do a Plus game. What was the process for like expanding your normal game to include a Plus game?
I'm not really that proud of the Plus game. The Plus game was actually like a request from the publisher who made the cartridge to make it longer. He thought it was too short. So
really,
wow, that's interesting.
So I don't know. I only had like 100 or like, oh man, I don't remember. I didn't have much space left, so all I did was like shift all the enemy stats like 2 steps to the right and just randomize the colors of the palettes and stuff. It's not really much the Plus game. It's just there for fun.
Are there any secrets in the game that a lot of people don't know about?
Well, there is a secret room in the game with a bitcode pattern. And if you actually deciphered the code, we would give you It'll Do 2 for free on Steam. But only 2 or 3 people actually registered on that. It led to a web page, and then you had to input your email, and then we sent out keys.
Oh, interesting.
Very random, but yeah.
Which area is that hidden room in? Are you willing to reveal that?
Yeah, it's in the desert. On the right wall.
That's right where I got stuck.
Oh, did you get stuck in the wall?
Yeah, earlier today.
That's the only place in the game I didn't find that room switching wall thing.
Well, that says something that at least that many people have played it and also found the secret. I mean, that's more than a lot of us get with some of the stuff that we slide in there and hope that people find someday.
Yeah. We're kind of well, I guess famous for having lots of secrets in our games in Atladosity, so we always try to fit something in, at least.
Nice.
So I guess when you started working kind of in the beginning, which you kind of already mentioned that with QuestForge, at least, you went from the process of demaking it to the 2600 and back, and that sort of helped refine things. But when you have approached NES development with other projects, do you begin with the limitations and then try to fit your idea or try to build an idea on top of that? Or do you start with an idea and then sort of work to fit it within the restraints? What's the kind of give and take there?
I guess I start with the idea, but I'm very open to change it to fit the optimization and limitations. And usually a bit into the project, the limitations will control the game more and more. Yeah, I guess that's the general flow.
Did you have like a specific mapper that you chose for this project, or kind of how did you go about that process of working with the hardware side?
You mean like the working with the cartridge?
Well, like when you started creating the project, did you have a mapper in mind and a certain board you were going to use, or did it sort of go the other way?
Well, the C tools I used, there's a library you can download from Shiro, he's called on the internet.
Ah, yes.
It's free to use. That's public domain, basically. And that one only supports the smallest cartridges. So the
NROM?
the NROM 256, I guess it's called.
Oh, I didn't know that. Neither Kevin or I do programming in C, so I was not aware of that.
Yeah, so that's basically the only one I use. I haven't. I want to make games for bigger mappers or bigger cartridges, but I haven't really delved into that yet. So,
how long did the development take of the game from start to finish?
I guess about it was very quickly actually. Like the weekends for like 3 months, maybe 2 months.
Oh wow!
Just weekends, huh?
Yeah, actually, because since I made the game for before and then restarted the project, I knew what I wanted to make, so it went on quite fast, actually, quite quickly.
Were all the graphics done ahead of time, or does that include the graphics being created?
Yeah, I think we took like 2 weeks afterwards to make the manual artwork and the box art and stuff like that. Nils, the graphics artist on the project, made those.
Yeah.
But yeah. He made graphics as we went along with the game, starting with the first area, and then we did it in order, I guess.
Was there one aspect of making the game that was the most challenging?
I guess fitting the game on the actual cartridge. I remember we don't have that much space left in the project file. There's just a couple of 100 bytes or something, I think.
Wow.
Sheesh, that's tight. Did you use any tools to help with like level layout, or did you just sort of program it straight in C?
I made I think the level editor is Photoshop.
Oh, yeah.
I just basically made a grid and then used 4 different shades of gray to map out the levels. And then I copied the rooms and I made a parser that would parse the BMP, the bitmap data. So that it could find rooms that were similar and stuff and merge them so they were one and the same design. So I didn't have to have similar copies and stuff like that. So many rooms are, as you might have noticed, the exact same layout.
I did not notice.
Yeah, I didn't either. Wow.
Okay.
No, geez. Man, you cut some corners just like they did in the original Zelda, but you cannot tell. That's awesome.
Well, thanks.
So you mentioned Nils, right? He did the graphics and stuff. Who else, I guess, sort of helped with the project, and what were their kind of roles in it?
Well, Nils works at Ludosity as well, and we're all kind of like retro focused. We really love retro games. So basically, everyone there helped at some point in some way. The designer tested the game and threw complaints at me, and the other graphics artists helped with like one enemy and like some tiles for the underwater area, I think. And yeah.
Is this part of like your guys' official like collected works as a group, or?
I guess it actually is, but we don't really push it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess that's a lie, because in a card game, Card City Nights, there are actually a couple of cards that are enemies and stuff from QuestForge.
Really?
Nice.
So the moose enemy is a card in Card City Knights 2, and
I hate that moose.
and the doughy looking people are also a card.
I like them. They're okay. But that moose, he moves way too erratically.
Yeah.
Which is good. It's at the end of the game, so.
What was the beta testing process like? Was it just people from Ludosity that helped test it, or did you bring in other people?
It was mainly just people at Ludosity. I remember I brought it to my cousin once, and he tried it out. But that's basically it. Yeah, a couple of people only tested it, so about 3-4 people.
Did you grow up with the people in Ludosity, or did you meet them as like an adult?
Yeah, as an adult. I did not grow up with them.
And you guys are all in Sweden?
Yeah, we're based in a town called Skövde, in the middle of... yeah, I guess. Yeah, never mind. I was about to say the middle of Sweden, but yeah, it's not really in the middle of Sweden.
It's all sort of a vague winter wonderland to me.
Yeah.
Way up north, way over there. So I guess, is there anything in hindsight that you would have done differently with the game? Or are you pretty happy with it? Or what are your kind of final thoughts on it?
Well, I guess the game is kind of amateurish.
No way.
Amateurish.
No way.
Well, I think so, because I think I can do much more with the 40K of that cartridge, and I want to try and make something bigger and better.
I think you need more than 40K.
No, it's cool to work with just 40K.
You NROM guys, I'll never understand. There's a bunch of you out there.
Really?
Oh yeah, there's a whole bunch of people that is, it makes sense. It's like digital art. You're fitting stuff within those constraints, and you're doing the best possible thing that you could within the limitations, and it's great. But some of these games, like, man, I just want a little more. Like, I'll take as much as I can get, and if 40K maxes that out, then let's get rid of that.
I actually think like the most fun to do in a project is to like optimize the data and stuff. That sounds so nerdy.
No,
but yeah.
I understand that. Oh, so you were nice enough to sort of let us take a look at some of your back burner and unfinished projects. Why did you end up pursuing QuestForge over those? Did they come before or after? Or I guess, why did QuestForge pull ahead?
I guess it's because it was so focused, the scope of the project. It was so simple, the run into enemies, that development was rapid enough so that I didn't like lose interest. That's why it was made, I think. The other projects I've started making are a bit more like undefined. So it takes a much longer time to make a game when you don't really know what you're making.
Yeah,
for sure. So the game was produced and distributed by Pico Interactive. Did he approach you guys to sell the game, or did you sort of just like look up who sells NES games and send him a message? Like, how did that whole thing transpire?
I think actually he contacted us. I don't know really how. How the hell did he know? Wait, I can't really remember actually how. Well, I guess it was the Jenny Tiger prototype.
Oh yeah,
because that came out before QuestForge. That was a thing we did at Ludosity for a game jam. There was some kind of game jam where you had to make something that looked like an NES game, but we made an actual NES game.
Hell yeah.
Oh, neat. I remember seeing that article. They did an article on it on Retro Collect, and it was like, wow, who is doing this? They have no contact with anybody. Like, where does this come from?
We're a bunch of shy nerds in Sweden, just tinkering on our games and just releasing them.
So what's the state of QuestForge now that it's sort of been discontinued from Pico? What comes next, I guess?
Well, as I said, I made the Atari 2600 game before, too, and then I made a 3D one for a game jam in 64 by 64 resolution. That's up on Itch.io, I guess it's called. I've started working on another QuestForge game for the Atari 2600. There I wanted to go the other way around. I wanted to make the biggest cart possible, so the 8-bank 2600 Atari cartridge. I want to make the biggest, coolest Atari game, I guess.
Is that going to be QuestForge 3?
No, that's 5.
Holy
and I started
shit.
6 on Commodore 64.
Wow.
So, is there any chance of you bringing any more Quest Forge to the NES?
Yes, absolutely.
God
I'm
bless
actually
you.
working on the first version of Quest Forge. I've rebranded it and called it Quest Forge Zero, and I'm planning on trying to make
Ooh.
that.
That's exciting.
Little Earthbound thing going there with the zero. I like that.
I'll be first in line when that comes out.
Same.
All right.
We can't both be first.
Well, then it'll be a bloodbath. What can I say? So, do you have any plans to do any other non-Quest Forge games for the NES, or is this sort of your main focus?
Well, the Quest Forge series sort of became like my Hello World project. So every time I try and make something for another console, I always like start a Quest Forge project on that console.
Oh, interesting.
Heck yeah.
But yeah, I absolutely want to do more NES stuff.
So you said you're a musician, right?
Yes.
What sort of musical training, I guess, did you have growing up, or is this something you just sort of picked up that you had a knack for?
I had no training at all.
That's awesome.
I offered to do the music for It'll Do 1 at Ludosity because we needed music, and the boss said yeah, and then I made some music.
You did the music for Quest Forge?
Yeah, I did the music for Quest Forge.
Has anyone told you that the opening theme in the first area sounds a lot like Papa Don't Preach Like Madonna?
Oh my god. Did you come up with that yourself?
Yeah.
Okay. Damn, you're the second person. My boss says
Hell
that.
yeah.
I never would have guessed.
Starts singing Papa Don't Preach every time the game song. So, damn it.
That's awesome.
I did not realize as I made it.
No, it's awesome. I'm definitely not, giving you a hard time. I think it's great.
So, which song are you going to end up playing, Kevin?
Well, I guess I have to play that one now that I've told people it sounds like Madonna.
I guess you do.
Go for it.
Thanks for coming on, Mattias. And we are going to listen to the Area 1 track for Quest Forge. Thanks again.
Thank you.
All right, so you have that in your head now. Da, 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 da. I'm going to play you the melody from Papa Don't Preach. I'll probably play you the pre-chorus into the chorus just to set it up a little bit. Now, Quest Forge does it sort of twice as long. It does that little sort of refrain 4 times, and I think Papa Don't Preach only does it twice, and then does a little bit of a key change. But I'll play that now, and then afterward, I think I'll break down the 2 sections just so you can hear them back to back. So that was Papa Don't Preach by Madonna, just showing you guys how similar it may or may not be to the overworld song from Quest Forge.
May not.
Yeah, I'll let the listeners decide for themselves, but you know what side of the fence I'm on. But what have you been like? It's been so. Not only has it been so long since we've done an episode, but it's been even longer because we recorded this entire episode and then lost the audio. So it feels like forever, but catch us up on what the hell you've been up to lately.
There are a lot of things that I did not want to do when releasing a game.
Walk us through it.
Especially when it was my own game and not publishing somebody else's, which, publishing somebody else's, you get the stress of, like, trying to make them happy and trying to, like, do right by them and all that. But when it's your own game, you get all of that plus, like, the added bonus of, like, feeling like a constant success or constant failure. And so I shipped, like, 30 copies of Spookatron, and everything was great. And I was like, I just have to hit print. I got to get a bit more ink, and then I can hit print, and I'll have the rest of my manuals, and everything will be out, and I can get rid of these 70, regular editions, and then I can build these other editions that I have all the equipment and all the supplies for.
The train was moving.
Oh, the train was moving, and
the train stopped.
The train, like, didn't stop. It, like, derailed, crashed, burned again, and then, like, it was dive bombed by things. And the worst part is that, like, sense that you've finally got this figured out and then nothing works out. And so, like, my printer just stopped printing one day. And so I ordered all new parts, and it did the same exact thing.
And it's not like you ordered third-party parts. Like, you talked to HP itself, right?
No, I definitely ordered third-party parts. We are no longer with HP. Yeah, and so, like, I ordered the same stuff that I did before, and everything should have worked, and of course it didn't. So, I am in the perhaps most terrible position of, like, not even not shipping people stuff, but not shipping some, but shipping other people their stuff, which is, like, 10 times worse because people are just pissed.
Yeah, I mean, if you were waiting for a Kickstarter reward and you saw other people getting theirs, you would assume yours is on the way, and when you find out it's not, yeah, you could be a little pissed off.
Well, and I completely get it, and it completely doesn't help me with the reality of not knowing... I don't want to say, like, not knowing how to finish it, but not being able to. And it's just stressful. Like, I just want to be done with this project. I've wanted to be done for almost a year now, which is why I did a Kickstarter in the first place. And I learned a lot and all that, but in the end, I just have this, like, weight of getting people their stuff, and it is stressful. So that's what's been going on with me. Life is difficult. How are you?
Beau, let me tell you how I am.
You're wonderful. I already know it. I can... gritting my teeth.
Do you know when a bear goes into hibernation and it gets that whole season of rest? And
that's not really how that works.
You just shut up and let me talk about this. The bear comes out and he's fucking hungry, man, and he wants to eat. That's what's going on right now. But man, like every project I had been working on was, like, sort of at an impasse. Like, I can't do the networking stuff in Unicorn. I don't have the talent to do the graphics for my Larry sequel. I'm waiting on graphics from MT for Isolation, but I don't have any money to pay him anyway, so, like, it doesn't matter. Like, all this stuff is at a standstill, and, like, I'm just thinking to myself, like, what can I do? And then, from the heavens, a ray of light shines down upon me, and angels start singing, and everything starts to fall into place for everything at the same time. It's really bizarre. So
I hate you so much.
Well, I'm sure my train too will come off the rails at some point and burst into flame twice. I don't know how that happened. But, like, things happened when we were at MagFest. We go there and we hang out with the guys from Retrotainment, and we talk about the haunted games, and we hang out with Greg, we hang out with Tim, we hang out with Zach, and those guys are, like, the best dudes. But getting to talk to them, Zach, he's working on the graphics for Full Quiet, but he's starting to get into this homebrew thing, and he's like, man, like, I want some other stuff to work on. Do you have anything that, like, I could do graphics for? And I'm thinking to myself, like, I have this Larry project that, like, the story is written for, but graphics are what's holding me back from doing it. Like, maybe he would kind of be awesome to, like, see, maybe what he could bring to the table here. So I sent him over the script to Larry too, and he sent me some sort of some spec graphics, and I kind of loved it, man. Like, it wasn't maybe what I would have done, but that's what made it so awesome. Like, it's a fresh take, but it still works. So I was like, let's do this. So we got together some details of what we both wanted to get from the project, and he's officially working on it now. He sent me, I think, 4 screens now, and they're all looking awesome. So
4? You've only shown me 2.
well,
That's awesome.
I can't, a magician can't reveal all his tricks. Even though I guess
what tricks do you
I'm
have?
not the magician in this metaphor, so scrap that. Yeah, I'll show you. But yeah, man, they're really good, and there's a specific detail. I don't think I want to give this away just yet. I think I want it to be a surprise. But there's something unique that he's doing with the graphics that I've never seen done before on the NES. So that'll be exciting to look forward to.
Color me intrigued.
If that wasn't enough, like, that in itself is exciting. Like, I can finally do this project that I'm so passionate about. But there's another project that I've been working on for even longer.
Gatsby?
Beau, keep hoping, my friend. No, Unicorn. So right after I finished Frogger back in 2009, I decided I wanted to do this port of an old BBS game, and I don't know how many of you guys used BBSs back in the day, but it was a way for your computer to dial into other computers and sort of chat with other. Yeah, it was a precursor to the internet, but there were games that people made, but they had to be very sort of, I don't want to say archaic, but they had to be very creative in the ways that they made these online games, because you weren't necessarily playing with a bunch of people at the same time. You would play your turn, and then you would log off the computer, and then another person would play their turn. So it was online, but in a sense to where it was kind of single player with extras. But I wanted to make a port of this game that I used to play on these systems from back in the day, called Legend of the Red Dragon, but I got the game done, but I couldn't quite figure out how to do this online part, and I think I've talked about this before on the podcast a little bit. I was working with Memblers to sort of make this happen, but, the two of us ran into some roadblocks, and I just figured that the project was dead, and I had completely cast this idea out of my brain as something that was going to happen. I just figured it was done, it wasn't going to happen, it wasn't a possibility. Online stuff for the NES is just too hard to figure out. But somehow it came up in our Discord chat in the brewery section, and I just said, like, this was something I was working on. It's not happening. It kind of sucks because I would really love it to happen. Some really smart people chimed in and sort of took an interest to the idea of what I was trying to pull off. So we've been working on this. There's 4 of us now. Well, I guess there's 5 of us. And I don't know that I want to spoil, like, who's sort of in on the fun right now. I want to maybe wait and make a sort of big announcement on this.
But not because you don't appreciate their help.
God, no. Like, I'm literally living the dream right now. Like, every day, there's, like, tangible things being done to, like, make this a reality. And even the tiny steps are, like, such a huge boost to my confidence and just my happiness, because it's something that I literally thought was dead, and it's coming to life right now before my eyes. So, God, guys, I know you're listening. Thank you so much, and I'll reveal who you are soon, but I want to do it in a special way. So yeah, Unicorn happening. Online NES game happening. So stay tuned. Larry, Unicorn, like 2 of my biggest, like, passion projects are coming to life. So I'm super excited, and I haven't been this excited in a long time about my own personal stuff that I'm working on, so happy to reveal that to everyone. Anyway, I think I just took 10 minutes with my answer, but that's what I've been up to, Beau.
Nah, man, like, I still encounter images, or the one image, of unicorn, like, on a weekly basis when I do my internet searches for various things.
And how long ago did you first see that image? Like, I've been working on this game for so long.
When I first started getting into things, the Retro Collect article on Unicorn was one of the things that got me into homebrewing and NES homebrewing in particular, because it said on the article, homebrew RPG, and I was like, oh man, somebody's making an RPG. I want to do this. I want to be part of this thing that's happening. And it's just awesome to see it finally coming together, because I know you've done so much work for it. Dave, who did the original graphics, he did so much work for it. Like, you guys had this thing going, and it's always sort of been hindered by technology. And to see that technology to catch up, not just for Unicorn, but for all of us, for anything that we want to do, it's just great to see.
Yeah, and what's super extra great about it, I'm just going to keep throwing adjectives in front of it because I'm just so happy.
Super extra ultra.
Yes,
great.
ultra for sure. Like, what, even as far as my vision was for Unicorn, as far as like the things that I wanted to do that sort of haven't been done before, if that wasn't enough, they're taking stuff even beyond what I could have imagined. So like, some of the things, I can't wait to share this stuff with you guys. Some of the things that they're doing, I literally hadn't imagined before. So you guys are really in for a treat. And I'm going to, I guess, back up and say, if we can all pull this off, it's going to be a treat. But like, I really think with as fast as things are moving, man, it's going to be awesome. And I can't wait to share this experience of playing this online with you guys. It's going to be great.
It's weird. I personally have never played an online game, and so it's special to me that my first online game will be an NES game. I know.
No, I'm not laughing because I'm making fun of you. Like, I'm just laughing because, like, I just can't believe it's going to happen finally. So, I know it probably sounds cheesy to everyone listening.
Oh no, we queued up the 8-bit tier music like 3 minutes ago, so you're good.
All right, but seriously, enough about me. Forget me, forget Unicorn, forget Larry. There's been other stuff going on in the community. Great stuff. There has been. And I'm just going to go ahead and jump off. I'm going to start this list right.
Bring the excitement.
Well, not only am I going to be excited about this, I know you are, because you've said on numerous episodes of this podcast, this new homebrew that's going to come out, and that is out, and that's shipping our way right now, is potentially going to be your favorite game of all time on the NES. Lizard is done. You can download it right now if you back the Kickstarter.
I shall
We're
not.
waiting for cartridges. Yeah, I'm waiting to play this thing on my Nintendo, man. Like, send it my way. But finally, Brad finished it, and people are playing it, and the response so far has been magnificent. So yeah, that's out now, Beau. How do you feel about that?
I remember where I was when the Kickstarter was funded.
This is like the JFK assassination. Like, you remember where you were.
It was back and to the left. No, because it got funded. I'm glad you appreciate it.
I love the Seinfeld references.
It's not a Seinfeld reference, it's a JFK reference in Seinfeld.
Whatever, man.
It got funded on my birthday back in like 2015 or something. And to me, it was just like, I remember when it launched, and like that day, it was just like, this is the coolest game that I've ever seen on the NES. And so I played the demo, and I've played the demo several times since. Even this past year in 2017, I took the time to like get everything I possibly could in the demo. And it's just such an amazing game. And I have based on that experience, like my hopes are so high that I'm sure it can only disappoint them. But I am glad to finally see it be shipped 3 years later.
Well,
which is not a problem to me personally, but I know some have had issues with it.
To that point, like, I think one thing that sets this game, and maybe Brad as a developer, sets him apart from the other projects that have come out in the past. I think personally, and maybe I can't speak for everyone, but I think personally as a developer, when I get excited about something and I want to sort of get a game out, like, there's a sense of urgency that I can't wait to finish this so people can play it, like, can experience it. And maybe some things in that way are rushed because we just want to get it out. Brad took the time, and he didn't even care how long it took. Like, he took the time because he had a vision of how he wanted this to play out and look. And I think he took the time to polish this game to a level that I think perhaps some of the other homebrews that have come out in the past, they just don't reach, you know? This game, it just looks beautiful.
I get people asking me on a monthly basis, where's their Kickstarter reward? And I'm like, 3 months late? He's like 3 years late, and I can't even imagine like the crap that he gets from people. And I'm not saying like crap like in a negative way, but just when you know that you owe people something and you're late, like, it feels like crap even if it's not. So
I can't even imagine, but I think what works in his favor is he can point to this game and say, yeah, I was 3 years late, but look at what you're getting now. Like, this is far and away past the level that when I first set out to do this, I sort of promised you guys. Like, I'm presenting you guys with this shit. Like, it's on another level. So it may be delayed, and I may have given him crap in the past for that fact. But looking at what he's done, like, I can't do that. Like, I can't do what he's done. So who am I to give him any crap? Like, Brad, you're the man.
To replace Legacy of the Wizard in my catalog of favorite games is what I thought to be an unachievable task.
I'm excited to get the cartridges in the mail. Like, I can't wait to play through it. So I'm sure everyone listening has also pledged to that back in the day. And if you haven't, Google that shit, man. Like, Lizard looks awesome. And I think he's selling it now on his website. But if not, I'm sure you can Google and find out where that is.
He's got the ROM for sale right now. It's like $10 or something. And then once backer rewards are shipped, regular edition will be available. So just, wait a month or so, get the game of the NES's lifetime.
Yep. So says Beau.
Well, maybe. He made some changes that I'm not like a huge fan of, potentially, but that's because I haven't played the original one. And I like the demo so much, so that's a personal thing, and I hope to be very, very wrong come any day now.
Yeah, we'll find out soon. But other things have been going on. I mean, as big as that is, there's some other stuff. Our good friend Tim from Oreb Games, who did Tailgate Party, he actually started a homebrew gaming competition. Is that right?
The HBPC, Homebrew Players Competition. No, Homebrew Players Competition.
I don't think that's it.
That definitely is it.
Okay, yes, you're right. I didn't think that was enough words.
Sass me, young man. Didn't think that was enough words.
But the second phase of that competition just ended, and the second game was streamers, right?
Yeah, so what he has done is for the 12 months of the year, he has chosen 12 games with some sort of high score emphasis, and you have to play them, post your high score, and you can get points, and you can get prizes done by the wonderful MT and his excellent art.
Yeah.
He does postcards of the art.
Yeah, no, and he sort of does these original interpretations of, some aspect of the game. The first game in the competition was Study Hall. MT did a really freaking cool graphic of, in the game you're a stick figure, but he sort of took that environment that I sort of created in very simplistic terms in the game and really brought it to life. So I'm very thankful that he's taken the time to sort of do some original illustrations for each game each month. So if you haven't started taking part of this and you want to, in the Gamers Gauntlet subforum of Nintendo Age, you can check it out. Each month he gives you 15 days to play the game in question, and then 15 days to sort of prepare for the next game coming up. And March's game is Chunk Out 2. So if you want to be a part of that and you don't have the game yet, you can buy it at retrousb.com. He's put them back in stock now. So buy the game, it'll ship to you, and come March 1st, we can get down on some Chunk Out.
Yeah, that's one of the great things about the competition so far is it's not only gotten people playing the games that have been sitting on their shelf, because, I mean, let's face it, like a lot of the homebrews, they have appealed in the past more to collectors. People buy them just to like have them, but this competition is really designed to have you pull them off the shelf, blow them off, and then, of course, insert them into your NES. And it does no damage. And don't quote me on that. And
asterisk.
Yeah, there's definitely an asterisk there. And yeah, so like it's also gotten them back into stock for some places like Retro USB that like Chunk Out 2 has been out of stock for 2 years or something?
It's been a while for sure.
It's been a long freaking while, but Brian has been gracious enough to put it back into circulation for us.
But one more thing that's been really cool about the competition, like typically when you think of people contributing to actually playing the homebrews, the numbers don't seem that high. But there's been a really good turnout for this competition. People are really playing the games and posting about it. It's been really fun.
Oh, the weirdest thing too has been the people that are like, well, I went to go buy the game and then I realized it was on my shelf and I just needed to like play it finally. And it was like, yeah, dude, like I'm with you because I have a lot of games I have never hardly even played. So it makes perfect sense.
It's as good a time as any for sure.
Tim has also chosen sort of a variety of games with the competition. Each one's from a different developer. He tried to hit as many genres as possible as long as they had some sort of high score element, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. Even if you're not good at every month, like I sucked at the first two, maybe month 3 you'll be a little better.
Yeah, I was telling Tim today, like I didn't have time to actually sit down and submit a score for streamers, but he said that my study hall score's carrying me, so I'm pretty stoked about that.
You fool! My participation points for the lowest possible score will carry me.
Oh man. But in other news, Derek from Gradual Games, he took the ROMs from his first couple games and actually made them publicly available for free online.
Yeah, so that'd be Legends of Alia and Namalos, Storming the Castle, the remastered version currently offered on... Thank you. I'm always so worried about saying Namalos correct, or Nomalos, that I forget about Catzel.
That's okay.
Yeah, you're a cat knight. It makes sense.
And he named it after his cat Solomon. That's the Solomon spelled backwards. Nomalos.
Oh, I know. I love it.
It's the best, man.
Yeah, but those are now available for free online. If you've been curious about those games and haven't wanted to pay to check them out, please do so.
And that's gradualgames.com, right?
Yeah, gradualgames.com. And if you really like them, go ahead and buy that cart and support a brewer.
Absolutely.
Who does some of the finest work in the community.
Yeah, and I mean, you talk about a guy that's doing it for all the right reasons. Like, that dude is the dude. Like, if you want to support a guy that's literally living his dream, like, that's the dude.
Well, and Derek also, he released a public utility called Gradual Games Sound, which is sort of an alternative to Shiro's Famitone. And he has now updated GG Sound to be sort of current with everything. So if you're a brewer and you're looking for a sound engine, be sure to check that out. Derek's still updating it. It's not dead. And yeah, it's alive and well.
Yeah, he's doing a really good job of sort of staying on top of that. Like, as people's needs change and as sort of technology changes, he's always trying to update it to give everyone, the tools that they need to do what they want.
Well, he told me before that he had considered abandoning it since Famitone had become so, good But he's a musician. I think he's seen some things that he feels could be done better, and he's corrected them as he sees fit.
Yeah, so we do appreciate that. I haven't actually used it yet. I've been on the Famitone wagon for some time now. But I'm excited.
I want to use GG Sound for my next game.
Yeah, I do want to try it out.
Something a little different.
Mm-hmm. So in other news, Xelius, and I apologize if I'm not pronouncing that right. It's
Xelius?
Xelius. I'm going with Xelius. Tomato, my friend. He started posting, and I think he does live streams of programming tutorials for the NES online. I think he does them on Twitch, but he takes those Twitch broadcasts and he posts them on YouTube. So you can check out these NES programming video tutorials. And to my knowledge, that's never been done. People have talked about doing them. I've wanted to do them in the past because people have stressed that they don't learn very well just from sort of reading. They would benefit more from, seeing people do these things in action and maybe following along. So he's taken the time, and I think he's posted 5 videos right now. I think he might have done the 6th one tonight. But yeah, he's taken the time, and they're like an hour and a half long each. He's going into detail, at a slow pace and explaining along the way how to make an NES game. So if you don't learn well from reading and you want to just sort of see someone doing it, check it out. You can simply search for NES Programming number 1, and it's called Introduction to NES Hardware. He starts at the very, very beginning. You don't have to have any experience to get something out of this. And if Beau and I are any indication, you really don't need any prior knowledge. You just need a willingness to want to do something cool. So if you have a desire to make an NES game, check out the tutorial. And stick with it, man. Like, we're around if you have questions you want to ask us. And the community as a whole, like, they're so nurturing now. Like, everyone just wants to see everyone else do well. So, seriously, if you have any desire to do it, check that out.
One of the neatest things in the community, and I'm going to speak from personal experience on this, is having Game Genie codes made for your game. How weird is that?
Yeah, chalk that up under things you never thought would happen. Like, back in the day, it was so cool to, like, put the Game Genie on Mario and make him jump, higher than the screen, or, make him invincible. Like, to know that you made a game that someone took the time to make Game Genie codes for, it's freaking awesome.
Yeah, there's a couple of guys who have one's been doing this for years, and one has sort of been doing this for about a year. And Hybrid was the original, like, I'll make Game Genie codes for everything. And he's just been a champ with all this. Anytime a ROM's released, that's pretty much his first post, is to making these cool Game Genie codes.
And his posts are so hilarious. Like, he doesn't type, hey, like, check this out, I made some Game Genie codes for this game. His posts are literally infinite lives, code. Jump high, code. Like, it's just a list. He doesn't even, like, intro it. He's like, here it is.
Well, he's such a friendly guy, too, so it just contrasts so well.
Yeah, it's awesome.
But the other guy is named Bacteria Mage. He's sort of come into the scene lately, especially with homebrews, and he's the one who did codes for Spookatron, which I was pretty impressed with to, like, find. I was like, who would even care, like, enough to do this? And, yeah, so if you want to break all of my hard-fought design decisions, please use these codes. It won't affect me in my well-being at all.
He also made some codes for the incident, and it took me by surprise because a lot of the interaction I get on Twitter, it's usually just like people liking a tweet or maybe retweeting me. But this guy out of nowhere tweeted at me, and he's like, hey, made some Game Genie codes for the incident. Check out my website. I explain them. And he goes into, like, great detail of each code, like explaining how he edited the addresses and what the code does, and sort of the process that he went through for each one. And I had never seen someone take so much, I don't even want to say pride in what he did, but, like, he took the time to show the extent that he went to for each thing. So I thought that was really cool, and I really appreciated it.
The weirdest thing to me is that if you asked me to make Game Genie codes for my own game, I could not tell you how. In any way. Like, I mean, I can conceptually, like, be like, oh, you modify these bits of RAM or ROM or something, but like beyond that, I have no freaking clue.
Yeah, it's almost magic, man. And for those guys that are good at it, like they really make it look easy. But yeah, I have no idea either. I actually read an article, Dane, the founder of Nintendo Age,
The evil overlord himself?
the evil overlord, at one point was interviewed because he had some knowledge of how to make Game Genie codes, and I don't remember the website that interviewed him, but he detailed like how it's done, and I read that. And even after reading that, I still can't conceptualize how it's done. So hats off to the people that do that stuff, man. It's awesome.
The man who called my AVS book too technical. Yeah, all right. Anyways, yeah, so another thing, well, we were at MagFest, which we talked about earlier. I hate to kind of admit this, but I decided to play one of my own games, a game that I published, that I reprogrammed, that I've tested for hours on end, 0 to X, which is a kind of a 2048 clone.
Why do you hate admitting it? Because you're playing your own game?
I hate admitting it because I completely ignored this guy who I'm kind of a big fan of, because I was so into my own game that I could play it anytime I wanted. And the one, like, kind of out that I have with all that is that I got my highest score ever, which is double X, and, like, I did amazing.
Hell yeah.
I'm magical. What can I say? But during this process, a guy by the name of Joel Albino, he runs the Long Island Retro Gaming Expo, which I went to for a couple of years ago. He came up and started talking to me, and I still feel so bad. I just kind of completely ignored him because...
You got 0 X to play, man. Come on.
Yeah, dude, I was doing so good. I snaked it, everything. But Joel suffered from that and only got like a quarter, maybe an eighth of my attention. And he runs this amazing little expo that's been growing every year. It's changed venues a couple times. He's been nice enough to sort of host homebrewers kind of for free. At least in the past, you can always explore that option. And he's just really passionate. Like, you meet a lot of people, not a lot, you meet some people who are just sort of like interested for their own ends. But Joel is a genuinely passionate individual about what we do. And if you're a dev and you live anywhere near Long Island, he's probably got a spot that he would willingly give you. Just do not stay at the Hooker Hotel that I stayed at in Jericho.
That's
Long
not
Island.
what it's called.
No, that's pretty much what it was called. I've never been so scared in my life.
Do you think it was scarier than the time that I was driving up to visit you and I had to stay in a hotel that the door wouldn't close?
I do. Have you ever been in Long Island?
No, that's true. I haven't.
Like, there's a Lamborghini dealership across the street and then Hooker Hotel. There were people driving around in the parking lot throwing live animals in cages into a van. What? Why?
Oh, man.
Why would they do that?
That sounds like a movie.
It sounds like my nightmare. But anyways, outside of the Hooker Hotel, I highly recommend getting in touch with Joel. Just a wonderful gentleman and very passionate about what we do.
But something that sort of happened since the last episode that we put out that I didn't expect to happen. Some people contacted me saying that they were wanting to find a way to maybe donate some money to us. They asked if we had a Patreon up, and that is something that I never once considered doing. Like, anytime I ever saw anyone put a Patreon up, I would think to myself, like, why would anyone donate money to someone, like, just sitting around doing nothing? Like, they don't have a job. They're just, like, going around saying that they're creating things, but, like, who would give their money to them?
Digital panhandling.
I know. Like, it just seemed so pathetic to me. But as some of you may not know, when we set out to make this podcast, you know, we didn't think that it would cost us any money. We just sort of started putting up episodes using free services. But as the episodes sort of started piling up, I had to upgrade the client that we used to host our MP3s because they had like a 20-hour maximum for free, for a free account. So I had to pay close to, I think, $140 to upgrade our account to basically support the episodes that we're going to be putting up, as time goes on. And after a couple people asked me if we had a Patreon that they'd like to donate, I started thinking to myself, like, we had to use some of our own money out of pocket. Like, it wouldn't be such a bad idea to try to recoup some of that if people enjoy what we're doing, and maybe you want to help out. So I took their advice. I set up a Patreon. You can find it at patreon.com/NES assembly line. If you want to check it out, you don't have to donate. I'm not asking you. Please don't think we're begging. But you laugh, but I do still feel a little weird asking.
I don't laugh. I laugh because I feel weird.
Yeah, it's a weird position, and we don't need it. I didn't expect when I paid that $140 to be reimbursed in any way. But if you find yourself having some extra money and you enjoy what we do, I'm not saying that you paying us is going to increase the frequency that we put out episodes. We both still have lives. I'd like that. Yeah, we'd love to put one out every week, but we both have stuff going on. We both have lives. Long story short, check it out. If you want to donate, great. If you don't want to, no hard feelings. It's not something we need you to do, but we wanted to at least offer the service to people that might want to check it out.
And on that note, we will be sending you off with a new track. It's potentially for the great Kevin Hanley's point-and-click classic called Isolation. It is by Zai, and in the game you sort of play as an amnesiac who's not quite certain of what's going on, and I hope you can feel that in the music.
Yep, so you'll hopefully one day check that game out. But in the meantime, we appreciate you guys hanging out with us. As usual, if you want to write in some questions, you can reach us at nesassemblyline@gmail.com. Ask us anything you want, game-related, programming-related, whatever. We'll answer your questions on a future episode. You can reach both of us online on Twitter. I can be found at A Ton of Glaciers. Beau can be found at Soulgoose. Tweet at us there if you have any questions or if you just want to say what's up. You can always hang out with us at nintendoage.com. We're in the forums, in the brewery subforum is where we primarily hang out. That's where we talk about our projects. You can go there, ask programming questions, anything you want. We're there for you there. Not only us, a whole community of people are there waiting for you to answer your questions. In addition to that, if that wasn't enough ways you can get a hold of us, you can also find us on the Nintendo Age Discord chat. You can find the link to there at nintendoage.com. It is the first officially endorsed chat room in quite some time from Nintendo Age, so you can find that link very easily from Nintendo Age, but we're both in there also. So we appreciate you hanging out with us. We'll see you again soon when we talk about the NESDEF competition in great detail, and until next time, take it easy, guys.